Turnover can cost right now about $4,400 to replace a frontline team member, as much as $10,000 for a manager. It hurts productivity and morale for the employees that stay. And the nice thing is that all of this can be avoided, right? We can absolutely avoid losing our team members by investing in them. So when I was managing teams, this was pretty much me all day. I was getting stuck between I don't know and nobody told me and people leaving and just chaos all of the time. And so our goal is at the end of this webinar that we give you solutions that will make managing your team and retention feel like this. And so how do we do that? Right? It's a multi-pronged approach, making sure that we are really thinking about how do we approach our team members from the first moment that we meet them. So onboarding for retention, making sure that our operational tactics are both for money and morale. Really thinking through schedule flexibility and how team members actually view that. Making sure that we are giving teams a pool of which they can drink, right? We can lead them to water, we can't make them drink, but the pool has got to be full. And that really comes down to frontline communication and precise brand standards being accessible and available to your teams on an ongoing basis, not just the first week that they enter your organization. So what does it mean to be retention focused in onboarding, right? It is much more than just getting the W-2 signed and making sure somebody's license is up to date, right? Most frontline turnover happens within the first 30 days. So that means we really need to focus on how are we introducing our culture to our team? How are we introducing employees to their peers? And how do we actually present ourselves after the hiring is done? I said, great, Lacey, you're going to join Team Prosper. How do I make sure that from that moment, even up until their first shift, when they haven't even worked for you yet, how do we make sure that those moments are inclusive, that they are getting the sense that this is an organized place where there's no nonsense and they want to show up and be a part of your community, right? That means you have to include them in your community. So let's talk about Holly. Holly is joining the organization. At hiring, you're then inviting her to your communication platform, to your digital HQ, to your hub, where all of your culture, where they're getting their information, where your community lives, right? So she's not lost on day one going, okay, this is really intimidating. I don't know anybody. Nobody knows me. Does anybody even know I'm supposed to be here? You're setting the tone that this is a business that has tools, that actually values transparency and accountability, doesn't just put it on a wall somewhere. And that now we're going to actually set the tone for the entirety of her employment. Right, so you can post a bulletin, you can even post a picture of Holly saying, hey, Holly's coming to us from X brand or Y experience, right? She feels welcome, her team members know somebody's coming, and automatically she's part of store level communication, right? When you put somebody into Prosper and you say, hey, they work at this location as this role type, they are automatically filtered into the right resource libraries, into the right group chats, versus typically what happens now is someone joins the organization, a month may go by, they get disciplined for something that they go, well, I don't know, nobody told me, I'm not even in that group chat. Right, so you're really creating and setting the standard for inclusivity and community day one. And those are the sorts of things that employees respond to and they go, oh, okay, this is a group of people I want to be a part of. They're going to show up, do better from the beginning. Not only that, we need to support those first 30 days, right? So that it's just not, okay, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. I know somebody kind of told me in training and I'm too embarrassed or I'm too shy to ask for help, right? We can provide that help autonomously in a way where people can succeed without having to pull time from managers, without having to create chaos, without having to make mistakes, right? And people want to stay in organizations and in jobs where they feel that they are successful. If they think they're doing a good job, they're going to feel better about doing it, right? How do we do that? We can provide automated checklists, both for onboarding, but then what are they supposed to do every morning? What does the first 30 days of their employment look like? And how can we set and forget that, especially when you're a multi-unit company, how do we make sure that every single employee is having the same experience in their first 30 days, regardless of the skills of the manager, right? Some of your managers are really great with people. Some of them are not. and they're better at Excel, right? So how do we democratize the experience from a person-to-person basis in a way that you set up once and it goes to every single one of your locations. So now you're able to scale with consistency. Secondly, how do we operate for bottom line results by supporting the employees actually interacting with your guest, right? I know right now everyone is very AI crazed, but AI is not going to replace person-to-person interactions in the kinds of businesses that we run, right? In the end of the day, the number one thing that is going to create a great guest experience is a well-informed person behind the cashier, behind the desk, right? Great guest experiences start with well-informed employees and employees who care, right? So we have this idea that we want our frontline to have ownership mindset, and then we give them no tools to actually exercise it. So why don't we say, okay, you know what? We want you guys to all be the eyes, the ears of the organization. We need to give them ways to actually see something, say something, right? So establishing ways for your team members to actually communicate to you bottom up, not always just top down, in an organized way that is productive. Tickets are completely customizable. So for some, we say, hey, maybe they want to know about customer complaints. For others, it's mostly facilities driven. But giving your teams actual pathways aside from, oh, hey, by the way, this is wet, or that doesn't work, or consistently demoralizing them only because they go to use something to find out it's broken, right? How do we actually inspire our teams to take that ownership mindset in a way that is going to be more productive? Right now, your managers, your area managers, they can see things more easily. They can get things fixed more easily. They can communicate up, down, and sideways, right? But without tools that actually help your team to relay information from the bottom, right now, a lot of people use a Post-it. That doesn't actually inspire great work. Again, operational checklists, I cannot stress enough. Expectations known or expectations met. And our frontline team have a lot going on, right? Work-life balance is tough for everybody, including them. It might honestly be the hardest for them. So really making sure that you are taking the guesswork out of success for your teams is going to breed such a better result, such a better relationship, right? I have a theory that employees don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad relationships, right? And ultimately, if now I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, I can do it. And so my manager isn't always going, oh, hey, did you? They know, right? And now if I've said I've done something and it's not done, my manager actually has the ability to manage, because right now it's like, well, I don't know. Nobody told me. I didn't see that. I didn't get that. And that leaves your managers really stifled, because what are they supposed to do short of calling somebody a liar, right? They can't. They shouldn't. And so in subordination, they do know how to manage, right? But without actual non-objective ways of operating, there's really no way to do that. Employees feel seen, they feel like something is fair, right? It's not subjective of somebody feels like they're not pulling their weight. And a lot of those sort of interpersonal nuances can be smoothed out for better operation, better retention. Keeping brand standards accessible. This one's huge. I think everybody on this call probably has a share drive or a Google Drive or a binder somewhere, or something that is not mobile friendly or that exists maybe only for managers up, right? The idea that these are the standards that we are all going to hold each other accountable to, and then hiding them behind places where nobody knows where to find them, or maybe this is in the email thread, or maybe that's on our text chain, right, is really unfair. Right? Employees retain about 10 to 20% of what they're trained on, right? If it were me, maybe I'd be closer to like 5 or 6, right? I have so much going on in my mind at any time that not making everything live in real time for your teams is a real miss, especially if you want to hold them accountable to it. So how do we make sure that we're putting everything your team needs in the palm of their hand in a way that in some cases may be somewhat redundant to LMS, right? Because they've been trained here and they're finding it now in perpetuity on their phone. But then what are the things that don't belong in LMS that these team members still need? Where to park? What's the Wi-Fi? How do I handle a angry customer? How do I process a certain coupon code? Right? These are things that teams need on the ground in real time. Everybody has had that experience where you're trying, all you want to do is give a business money, and the employee on the other side of the counter can't help you, right? Because shoot, I know we talked about this once, but I have totally forgotten. And now I just need to take your number and someone else is going to call you back, right? What is the likelihood that you're ever going to walk into that place ever again? Instead, making sure that everything that your team needs is accessible right there, verified, is going to make them significantly better employees. And again, when they're successful, they stay, right? Because they're getting the kudos, they're getting seen, they're feeling like they're accomplishing things because they are. And they're doing it in a way that is supported and owned by the brand, right? That goes a really long way. This one I'm a stickler on, right? We all talk about, well, our teams need to know, we're going to hold them accountable to it. And then we're going to use things like group chats and freemium products and things we don't own as a company and personal cell phones one-to-one to actually get down to the front line. We include maybe our area managers, maybe we include our district managers in any sort of corporately owned communication platform. But the people who actually have to do the job, the people who are actually talking to your customer, we don't include them. And they're the ones who need to know the most. 81% of managers think they communicate well, 30% of employees agree, right? So how do we democratize that? How do we actually create communication that is compliant, that the company can own? That means that when somebody is termed, it's a clean break from the company, but while they're an employee, they feel really included and welcome. The idea that we can post something to the entire organization at once, we can segment things just to specific regions, specific working groups, specific stores, and that we can really hold people accountable. We can always see who saw what, when. Right? It's not just the ease of distribution, it's the ease of accountability. Because without accountability, the distribution is somewhat meaningless. Everything has to live for your employees in perpetuity. So if I wanted to find this again, I can simply just search for it. It's going to populate. It's not something that is in one thread or another thread. And keeping things sort of easy is the idea. Right now, this is what most people's communication strategy looks like, right? We have a great idea. It goes to the next rung, 20% gets lost. The next rung, 40% gets lost, right? By the time you get to your front line, maybe 20% of the message actually comes through, right? And they're 100% of who's talking to your customer. Those are not risks that frankly I would take. Also, as HR law changes, you really want to own your company communication, your company conversation. It protects you, it protects your managers, it protects your frontline team. And so doing things in a non-compliant or in a unsponsored by the company way that you don't own all of that communication data, we've seen be a very costly mistake. On the lighter front, right, how do we also make sure that we're inclusive in all of our conversation, right? We have people who speak all kinds of different languages. We should make sure that when we are communicating, that we're communicating in a way that is inclusive to everybody, that they can engage with, they can ask questions, but is going to make them feel like they're seen as an individual in a large organization. Additionally, when you have a giant team, every single day is definitely somebody's birthday. But making sure that we actually recognize people. So this is how we celebrate birthdays in Prosper. You open to happy birthday, there's a bunch of confetti. Your team actually will get a card that they can sign 3 days before. And your entire team can actually say, hey, happy birthday, happy work anniversary, happy 5 years. Right? Easy. You set it up when you add the new employee, and then you don't have to think about it again. But you're actually able to deliver on your brand promise, right? That we're going to see our team members, we're going to recognize our team members in a way that took 30 seconds of setup. right? So the idea here is how can we maximize ourselves as leaders to have the most impact on the ground? Because the idea that every single day we're saying happy birthday to 10 people, that's just not realistic, right? Sometimes just more pressing things come up, right? So how do we cover our bases? Another big piece, right? We all go, well, I have no idea what my team wants. I have no idea how successful something's been or whether or not our sell-through messaging resonated, right? If you want to know how your team members feel, don't be afraid to ask them. People want to be a part of organizations where they feel seen, where they're included, where they're part of a culture, and where their opinion is valued. These are really easy ways to say, hey, we know that everybody is on one communication platform. Let's shoot out we have 2 different menu items or we run 2 different specials. Which should you like better? Right? And what's really nice is that sounds like a daunting task if you don't have any way to reach people. But in a system like Prosper, you can say, great, I want to create a new poll. I want to send it to everybody in the California region. And it's going to take you about 30 seconds. Right? You're going to get that feedback. You're going to get that buy-in. Lastly, before we talk about going to questions, schedule flexibility is probably the #1 thing team members value when they are thinking about where they want to stay. McKinsey ran a poll, and of 2 different job offers, which do you think most frontline employees chose? $2 per hour more with a predictable schedule, health insurance,
It's
and tuition
12:30.
reimbursement, or $1 per hour, so less money, but flexible hours, no tuition reimbursement, but the opportunity for promotion. Overwhelmingly, frontline employees chose offer 1. The ability that they could manage their life and their work life in a reasonable way, that they were being communicated to in a way that they could actually absorb the information in order to find everything and manage work-life balance, and that they were given opportunities to be promoted, right? They were given opportunities to succeed. They were able to access all of the information that they needed to be the best version of the employee that they could be. They all chose offer 1. Right, 75% of shift workers want to choose their shifts. There was a 43% boost in employee retention for companies with flexible schedules. So in a system like Prosper, people are able to see their schedules, confirm their schedules, swap shifts with their peers, making sure that we're not going into overtime and some of the other compliance pieces as well, and pick up extra work. Right, these are things that frontline team members frankly need. They either want to grow within your organization or they're working with you while they're in school or while they're a mom or whatever that might look like. But the ability for them to manage both their personal life and their work life in a seamless mobile way is hugely important. And of course, we want to make it easy for managers too. Scheduling can sometimes take days, if not multiple days. You really want to give your team a way for them to fill holes really easily, to set templates for themselves, regardless of who is actually working the individual shifts, project and forecast to budget, and make sure that everyone is always compliant within the system as well. Right, and so all together, essentially the idea is that if you can create a cohesive environment that is easy to set up, easy to implement, that your team is going to want to engage with because it meets all of the criteria of their needs. You're going to see a huge boost in retention because you're actually delivering on all of your values, all of your promises, all of the things that your brand stands for in a manageable way that you can actually execute. Because it's all in one place. And so those are the ideas that we've seen at Prosper really create huge boost in retention. We've seen about a 20 to 25% boost in retention on frontline and about a 60% retention boost for that manager to middle manager level, right? Because those are the people that right now are really getting the crunch because they're getting the information from the top and expected to manage all of the bottom. Now they have a way to hold people accountable. Your team knows where to find things. You eliminate all of the friction between I don't know and nobody told me and lack of transparency from top to bottom. And everybody is able to succeed in one place. We would love to show you in depth how Prosper might work for your organization and all of the features that we offer. You can scan this QR code as well. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen in just a moment so that I can see questions and answers and chat. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. So the first question we have is, does Prosper replace LMS? And the answer is no, it does not have to. So where LMS ends and Prosper begins. LMS is what somebody might be trained on for the first 2 weeks of their employment, or when there is right, how to use the fryer, how to use the refrigerator, whatever it may be. Where Prosper then comes in is for everything under LMS, but they need day to day on the ground, right? So we have a new menu item, we have a new special, we have a new SOP or a policy procedure or something that is one-off. We have information that breaks the business that team members need that their managers can ask 10 times a day. Like, what's the Wi-Fi? Where do I park? What do I do if we have a flood? Who do I call? Location specific documents, franchise partner specific documents. And so really resources is a knowledge library that can support LMS. We do have customers that use Prosper as LMS, but that is really a business choice. Okay, thank you, Ruth. Frank, do you offer integrations? We have a fully open API. So any integration that you want, however you want Prosper to fit within your tech stack, that is a possibility. And we offer all the documentation, support, endpoints, everything that you could possibly need.